Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go. All right, let us go. It is Ballsy Uncut, installment 97 on this frigid February 18th as I air this thing. Wherever you're checking this podcast out, however you're checking it out, I do appreciate it. I'm fairly frustrated right now, so I apologize for letting that seep through. Now, I had promoted we were going to do an interview with Tevaughn Campbell, former Regina Ram, Stampeder, Rider, Jet, New York Jet, that is, briefly, Charger, Jag, and now back to the Riders. Could be one of the great offseason signings for Jeremy O'Day and his crew, 31-year-old Tevaughn Campbell. So I promote we're going to have Tevaughn Campbell on the show, and I do the interview about an hour before I air this thing, or I do the interview. So I say we because I'm always used to being part of a team. It's just me. So I do my interview. I go run a couple errands. I come back and get ready to put it into the system. I put the interview into the system, and visually it looks good as it can look for me. Tevaughn looks great. The audio sounds great, but it's off kilter. Like my question doesn't line up with his answer. It's off by a couple seconds. So I have to figure it out. I may just have to air the interview later just with him, and you won't hear any of my questions. I'll see if I can do that. I do apologize. It quite frankly pisses me off, but technology is not foolproof. That's why when we get into this whole AI stuff, I know Chat GPT AI, it's all cool, but it's kind of scary too. Kind of scary for this old timer. Anyway, so we're not going to have that today. I do have an interview with Joe Lozito, who's a Rider fan. He's a CFL fan, but he's a Rider fan. Philly, New York area. I talked to him last week on the anniversary of his heroics in a subway where he almost died, and how he became a CFL and a Rider fan. So we'll do a little fandom here on this one. Coming up tomorrow on the show, though, I've already lined up some great guests. We've got Caleb Joseph, the former Major League Baseball catcher with the Jays and the Baltimore Orioles. He's a guy that is now on Rogers Sportsnet. So he'll have an opinion on the Blue Jays, who are, in my opinion, a kitchen fire inside of a dumpster fire. An organization that had a chance to build a great team around Vladdy Guerrero Jr., but hasn't even been able to win a single playoff game with him, and they couldn't complete an extension with their franchise player. So now he is going to test the free agent market this fall. Extending him would have meant committing to a huge contract. They should have done it a couple of years ago when they could have done it for cheaper, but they shied away from giving him Fernando Tatis type of money. And so Vladdy Guerrero now says the sides weren't close. The Jays, their ownership won't define what close is or isn't. They just said we couldn't get it done. Guerrero hasn't shut the door on coming back to the Jays, but he said they're going to have to compete with 29 other teams. I was trying to think of a list of players that will outperform Guerrero Jr. over the next 5 to 10 years. And the list wouldn't be that long. And of the list, the players that I'm thinking of already have been locked up to long-term deals, untouchable in trade talks, or both. And the Jays are letting this guy walk. And then you got Bo Bichette, who said he wants to play with Guerrero for years. Now, money talks in the end, but that would lead you to believe that Bo Bichette will be walking as well. So the Jays, they're a joke. Or maybe they're fiscally responsible. We'll be talking to Caleb Joseph about that tomorrow and other things in the world of baseball. I know it's cold, freezing cold here, but pitchers and catchers have reported, and so it kind of gets me. I get into baseball early, a little bit during the season if my team's doing well, the Padres, like I did last year, and then late when the playoffs matter. So it gets me thinking of spring. So that's why we'll have Caleb Joseph on. We're also going to talk to a star of tomorrow today. Only it'll be a star of tomorrow. Because on the next installment, I'm going to talk to Nate Boschman. He is a free safety for the Calgary Dinos. He won the President's Trophy as the outstanding defensive player in U Sports football. He's one of the top prospects going into the Canadian college draft and competing in the combine coming up here in March in Regina. So we'll talk to former teammate of my son's. Boston defenseman Charlie McAvoy is out with an undisclosed injury. So the Bruins defenseman will not play in Boston in the championship game between Canada and the U.S. of the Four Nations face-off. Canucks defenseman Quinn Hughes, who said he couldn't play while rehabbing an injury, is on his way to Boston, but can only play should another D-man go down. Wink, wink. I wonder who's going to be hurt mysteriously or sick mysteriously so Quinn Hughes can play. Kachucks are hurt. Matthew was noticeably limping after Saturday's game against Canada when we had 3 fights in 9 seconds. And then his brother Brady crashes into a post against Sweden in that meaningless game and leaves in the first period. You can expect both Kachucks to play. Austin Matthews didn't dress. He'll play. He's been basically non-existent, which is, I don't know if that's scary for Canada because he's bound to break out. He's too good of a hockey player, even though I don't think he's a big-time player. But this is big-time hockey bragging rights coming up on Thursday. I predicted Canada over Finland 5-2. It was 5-3. They needed an empty netter from Crosby. By the way, great play. Solid check in neutral zone. Gets the bouncing puck and whacks it into the empty net. So I was close there, and I had Canada all along after losing to the U.S. I said they'd win 3-2 in overtime and a goal by McDavid, and I'm standing by that. Should be a great game, but let's just I know there's big hockey bragging rights and everything going on in the world with, it's funny. I go through my Twitter and I see U.S. representatives at a table with Russian representatives and no Ukrainian representatives in Saudi Arabia with the guy at the end of the table with the turban. And they're talking about the Ukrainian-Russia war and trying to end it. Once again, Ukraine not there. I don't know why they're not represented. But anyway, and then I go to my next feed on Twitter or on X, and it's Canadian fans booing U.S. hockey fans, and they see a lot of trash talk in there. I don't even know what world I'm living in. Canada and the U.S. fighting, and the U.S. and Russia are buddies. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just kind of weird. But let's pump the brakes on this being this rivals 2010 and the golden goal with Sidney Crosby. Get out of here. It's a nice promotional spin on an all-star break. And I'll give the NHL credit for that. It's probably the biggest international game we've kind of been a part of, best on best in terms of, pros since 2010 when Canada won in overtime. But it's not even comparable. Come on, get out of here. CFL news, the Riders have signed Canadian defensive back Kerfala Exume. He became a free agent last week. He's 6 foot, 195-pounder from Montreal, won a Grey Cup with Toronto last season, recording 8 special teams tackles in 12 regular season games. And the Edmonton Elks made Robbie Smith, the former Argo, the highest paid defensive player in the CFL for 2025 and the highest paid non-quarterback. Robbie Smith will earn $270,000 minimum, but could make a maximum of $276,000. He's in the prime of his career and had a breakout year with the Grey Cup champs last year. In fact, 2-time Grey Cup champ. If you remember, he had a great fourth quarter defensively here in Regina in 2022, blocked a game-winning field goal from the Blue Bombers in Regina to win that 2022 Grey Cup. So Robbie Smith, the highest paid non-quarterback in the CFL. I don't know about that from Ed Hervey, but I'm happy a Canadian's the highest paid non-quarterback. I'm not going to lie to you. All right. So we will take a timeout here. On the other side, we'll update you on Scotty's scores as Skrillex from Alberta taking on Nancy Martin of Saskatoon representing Saskatchewan. Martin is 3-2 after losing last night to Rachel Holman, and she's losing right now in the 9th end as I talk to you right now. But time for a sponsor break, and then Joe Lozito. Great. We talk about the America-Canada clash now. We try to smooth things over CFL style with a big-time CFL fan in New York. My buddy Joe Lozito from New York. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ballsy. Thanks for having me.
Now, people are asking me, why are you talking to a guy in New York? Because he's a Rider fan. How did you become a Rider fan? Because you joined me when I was doing the pre and post game show before I became the voice of the team. You joined me when must have been when the stadium almost just opened. Like you were there a few years ago, weren't you? Or when were you there? I lost track.
I think it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, 3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. And how I became a Rider fan was simple. It was the Patriots Super Bowl where they were down 28-3, and they ended up winning. They beat Atlanta, and I wasn't ready to not have football after that. So I said, oh, maybe I'll look into the CFL. And I put a poll up on Twitter with 4 teams, 4 of the 5 Western teams.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I had no idea just how big the Riders were in Saskatchewan. My experience with the province was mostly junior hockey, so I didn't know just how big they were. And it was like 1 or 2 people in Rider Nation got a hold of that, and it was the numbers were just staggering. They basically dummied the other three teams combined. So so I just went with that, and that was it, and that's how I became a fan.
So Joseph, you said with junior hockey in Saskatchewan, you just mean from watching the World Juniors, or what do you mean by that?
No, I'm hockey is probably, especially back then, not so much now. I don't really care for how the game is played, but hockey's probably my first love, and I've been into junior hockey, for a long time. WHL and all the CHL across Canada, OHL, Quebec League. So, and I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of guys who went through the Western Hockey League. My best friend played for a few teams in the Western Hockey League. So, so that was really my only experience with sports in Canada was junior hockey. So I was really, once I saw how big the Riders were in Saskatchewan, it was an eye opener.
Did you, because the Riders share a parking lot with the Regina Pats, the oldest major junior franchise, did you get to go to a Pats game, or was it in the summer you came, so you couldn't go to both, right?
Actually, there was a preseason game, I believe, and my flight, it was a nightmare, and I regret it to this day. The flight took forever to get there. By the time I got in, I was exhausted, and I could have gone to a Pats exhibition game, and I didn't, and to this day I kick myself. So hopefully I'll get back out there and hit all the major Western League teams, and also some of the SJ teams as well.
I love watching junior hockey because those kids are striving to be pros, and they just give it their all, and it's they're not thinking of the paycheck, which is kind of what I'm looking forward to in this 4 nations face-off tournament coming up: Canada, US, Sweden, and Finland. Although it'd be nice to see Russia there, but because of stupid politics and everything like that, we can't get Russian athletes. So I'm kind of lukewarm to the tournament because it's not truly a best on best. But that's also what I like about the CFL is it's a mom and pop league. Like half of the stadium makes more money than the players. So those players, they're professional, they're great athletes, but they're really playing for the love of football.
It's funny you say that because years ago when my kids were young and we were living in Philadelphia at the time, we used to go watch independent league baseball in New Jersey, a team called the Somerset Patriots, who's now one of the farm teams of the Yankees. And my kids were young, but so they only know like pro. Well, this is pro, but major league sports, and at that point, it's hard not to know how much money they make. And I remember telling my boys, I'm like, the guys you're watching here tonight, they're doing this because they love the sport, because some of these guys are working camps in the summer. I said, I probably make more money a year than all these guys. So these are people who love playing baseball. They're playing baseball because they love the sport, not like, I'm sure there are major leaguers who do as well, but these are guys making probably $400 or $500 a week, and they're doing it because they love it. So I love that analogy that you used.
Yeah, Joe Lozito joining us here. what do you like about our CFL game? I know you don't watch it as much as you used to because you work at Carnegie Hall now and you don't have a lot of time. You're in a box. You don't have a lot of time. First of all, for people not familiar with the story, we'll get into the heroism in a second, but what is your job exactly?
Well, I actually work in the box office at Carnegie Hall. It's a union job. I've been doing box office work since 2005. I started at Madison Square Garden, worked at Lincoln Center. Now I'm at Carnegie Hall. I was able to land a job there post-COVID. And basically, it's the opposite of a 9-to-5 job. So people work 9 to 5, and then they go to see shows at night. Well, when people that work 9 to 5 go to see shows, well, that's when I'm working. So the schedule is not really conducive, especially for a boomer like myself, where it's just easier to DVR stuff. It's not really conducive to watch stuff on apps, but I'm fortunate enough to have that job. It pays the bills, and hopefully do it for a few more years and then slide into retirement.
So it's a limited your fandom for the CFL. But what do you like about our game? You grew up on the 4-down game, obviously. Philadelphia lived there, so you got to be pumped. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. I would assume you're pretty happy.
I was very happy. I live and die with the Buffalo Bills, but if I had to pick a number 2 team, it would be Philly. That's where we lived for 10 years. My sons were both born there, and I'm tired of the Chiefs. So, yeah, I'm pretty pumped about this.
Yeah, I was all Chiefed and Swifted out, too. I'm not a huge Philly fan, but I love when they wear those Kelly green unis. It reminds me of the Riders throwback colors, which, by the way, the Riders retro greens that they wear on Labor Day, those are the best jerseys in the CFL, in my opinion.
I love them. I usually don't stray from the normal jerseys, but I do love that jersey for sure. And I always love the nostalgia as well. Yeah.
Did you see the new Obsidian Green Rider jerseys? They're kind of that greenish black jersey. Have you seen that one yet?
No, I did not see that one yet.
Okay, so what do you like about our game? What's turned you on about the CFL game, even though you don't watch it as much as you used to?
Well, I guess the first thing is it's different from the game I grew up on. The 3 downs, I kind of like that because it puts pressure more on the offense, so you see more passing. I like that. I mean, everyone likes passing, right? Although I can appreciate the running game, and I'm always nostalgic for the old fullbacks and everything like that. But when I first started watching it, it was just the differences in the game. The field is bigger. Like I said, the 3 downs was a big thing. And to be honest with you, I think one of the things that really drew me to the game was how passionate the fans are. I would watch the games on TV here, and especially the Riders games. And I'll never forget the first few games I watched. You literally heard an audible buzz through the TV. And I was like, wow, that is pretty intense. So I would say, aside from the logistics of the game, the fans really had a lot to do with it.
Yeah. It's kind of sad in a way because they still have a strong fan base here in Saskatchewan. Winnipeg is probably the top fan base right now. Saskatchewan's kind of waned a little bit. There are a couple of reasons for that, which we won't get into. But it's kind of waned a little bit. So it kind of almost mirrors a little bit what you're going through, although yours is more work-related. Okay, I got you on here, too. We told this on the radio way back in the day, but this is a different platform. Today is actually... And I was thinking about you because I hadn't heard from you for a while, so it's kind of ironic I asked you to do this interview. Today is the 14th anniversary of you. I don't like to use hero very much for like overtime hero or what a heroic save because it's sports. It's men playing and women playing kids' games, and it's not war, and it's not saving people's lives. You almost lost your life to save some lives. Tell us about this day 14 years ago, a Rider fan in New York, being a hero.
Well, I'm always reluctant to call myself a hero. It's kind of embarrassing.
So you're not. I am. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. No, this was back when I was working at Lincoln Center, and I was still living in Philadelphia, so I was commuting. It was 2.5 hours one way, so 5 hours round trip, and it just started out like a regular day. I was took the train in to Penn Station, and for those not familiar, that's underneath where the Rangers play at the Madison Square Garden. Jumped on the subway, and usually it's about less than 5 minutes to Lincoln Center. Next thing I know, there's just this guy, and he's trying to get into the engineer's booth to try to, I didn't know it at the time, but try to take over the train. When he wasn't allowed in, I guess he started to get frustrated. He turned his sights on me, looked down at me. I looked up at him. He said, "You're going to die, you're going to die," reached into the back of his jacket, whipped out an 8-inch chef's knife and popped me right in the face, right under here. And at that point, I knew that he was serious, and we were going to have a go there, I guess. And so I charged at him. I went to try to take him down by his legs, but being that we're talking football, it ended up being more like a football tackle around the waist.
Yeah.
And he ended up just slicing my head to shreds. And overall, he stabbed me 7 times. I lost a ton of blood and got a ton of stitches and staples. And fortunate to be here. And the one thing that I didn't know at the time was, and I didn't find out till I got to the hospital, was when I was lying there, the cop said to me, he held up a mugshot and he said, "Is this the guy that did this to you?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, you're a hero." And I said, "Well, I'm not a hero. Why am I a hero?" And he told me that he had killed 4 people in the previous 28 hours. So it kind of, I always say that's kind of the part of the movie where they kind of fade out and you kind of, it goes kind of quiet, because to this day, 14 years later, I still don't really know how to react to that. That's someone that had literally taken the lives of 4 people, including his stepfather, was ready to just, make me his 5th murder victim. But I was fortunate enough to take him down, and now he's living upstate New York here in the Dannemora prison, and I'm blessed to have every day with my family.
Yeah, how did that change your life, not only physically, but just how you appreciate life?
Well, I say I've always been one that I think appreciates life. I'm very grateful for what I have. I mean, I'm like everyone else. I can always have more, but I think I have more than a lot of people, so I'm grateful for that. I have my wife I've been with forever. I have 2 sons. And so I always appreciated that, but it's a little bit different because that day on the train, I was they always say you start seeing your life flash before your eyes. So there were times there where I didn't think I was going to get off that train. So I was kind of waiting for that movie to start rolling.
Yeah.
And it didn't, fortunately. So I kind of, more so than ever, look at every day that I wake up as a gift, because it's another day. I say it's another day for greatness, but really it's another day to just love my family and just take on the day and try to make it a great one.
So how did, you tackled him? How did you subdue him if you lost that much blood and everything like that?
Yeah, so I ended up, when I tackled him, I ended up on top of him. And if people are familiar with MMA, they call it dominant position. So I was kind of straddling him, and I was trying to get the knife out of his hand, and he still had the knife in his right hand, and he's flailing up at me, trying to stab me. I'm trying to catch his wrist with my left hand. He ended up stabbing me in the thumb, like where your thumb meets the hand there, the webbing.
Yeah.
And stabbed me in the tricep. And finally, it was the third time he tried to stab me, where I was able to grab his wrist, and I slammed it down, and the knife came out. So
wow. And what were the other people doing? Did you I'm almost speechless, and I'm never speechless. Is this all happening in slow motion? Did everybody run away and it was just you and him in a battle in one of the train cars?
Well, everything kind of happened in front of me. The train was sort of full. It was a Saturday morning, so thankfully it wasn't like rush hour, a typical rush hour day you would think in New York City. I would say half the people kind of bolted over to the next car. The other half kind of stayed and just as far away as possible. And the unfortunate irony of the whole thing, which is a whole other story, is there were 2 police officers that watched the whole thing go down behind me. And they were actually on the train to arrest him, and they knew he was on the train, and they just let him go at me like that. And,
okay, wait a minute. And didn't they take credit for bringing him down or something like that?
They took credit for it, and actually there was a male cop and a female cop. They not only took credit for it, they gave the male cop an award for bravery. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but how did it ever come out they didn't do anything and you were the guy that did it? Besides me talking about it, what the hell?
Well, the funny part was the first 24-hour news cycle, no one had spoken to me. So all they got was the side of the story of the police. And then the next morning, a couple of the newspapers came to see me in the hospital, and then they got the real story. And then, so the truth came out, and, the city and the police are sticking to their story, but I've been saying I tried to sue them I tried to go to court and just say, try to get the truth out there, but they wanted no part of it. They dismissed the case right away. And And I've said it, I don't need any preparation. Let's just go right now and we'll do it. I don't need to prepare. I have the truth on my side.
Yeah.
They dismissed that case. They knew I'd crucify them, and I guess they didn't. And I didn't. And listen, I people say, well, it was about money. Well, it was never about money. If I want $1, I wouldn't care. I just wanted it out there.
Yeah.
And you know, so that was it. But yeah, the real story's out there, and you know, I'm not, you know, dumping on law enforcement. You know, my sister's a retired cop. I have cops in my family, and I think the ones who do the job are heroes. And I think when you give a guy like Terrence Howell, that's his name, when you give him an award for bravery, it kind of cheapens everyone else who's received the same award. So the truth is out there. Everybody knows it. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough where, you know, I have proof. And even when they dismissed my case, I don't know if the judge thought she was throwing me a bone, but she basically said she believed my side of the story. But that wasn't good enough for me.
Hey, lastly, at the very least, did you get your medical costs covered?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. People ask me that, and I guess I did because I never received a bill. So somebody paid for it, whether it was the city or not. But I mean, I wasn't gonna, you know, it actually never came up. It was probably about 2 or 3 months later, and I was like, oh, I never got a bill for it. So someone took care of it. But I always say I should at least get Terrence Howell's day's pay for doing his job that day.
Yeah, no kidding. Did you have do you still have to have PTSD over it or anything like that?
I've been real fortunate, and no, I guess there are times where I kind of dream about it, but I don't remember it because my wife says I kind of, you know, she calls it the herky jerkies in my sleep.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm dreaming about it. I don't know, but I wouldn't say I have PTSD, but I would say that I do things differently now when I get on the subway. My patterns are different. I don't sit down. I always go to one end of the car. I'm always watching everybody. Yeah. So I can't sit here and tell you I have PTSD. It affects me, but not like that, and not near as much as what you hear with some of the veterans.
What about physical ramifications? You mentioned above your eye there. Do you have a lot of scarring from that situation?
Yeah, I got some good scars, I guess, but they've kind of faded over the years, but they're still there. But as far as any physical ramifications, probably the only thing in my thumb, like if I try to lift anything heavy and it goes more towards my thumb than my hands, I kind of get pins and needles.
Yeah.
But you know, again, I always say how blessed I was that day. I shouldn't be here. The amount of blood I lost, I really shouldn't be talking to you right now, but I am, and I'm grateful for it. So it could have ended up, there were so many degrees worse that this could have ended up to and including me dying. And I'm very fortunate.
It's awesome, man. Do you have any rider stuff? Do you wear any rider stuff? Do you have hats or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I got riders hats. I got riders. You know, I was fortunate enough during the time. I got to know a few of the players like Dan Clark and Darius Bladek and Derek Dennis from Queens, New York, the same borough I was born in. So yeah, I got jerseys of those guys, and I got a few other ones, even guys I didn't play like Labatt. I got one of his, and I got a few of the classic ones. So yeah, mostly the big boys up front. You know, I can relate more to them than the wide receivers.
You're more partial to that. Well, I'll get you. I'm going to try to send you one of those new obsidian green hats. How does that sound?
That'd be great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
A rider hero in New York. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it. Keep waving that CFL flag when you can, okay?
Absolutely. Anytime, brother. Thank you very much.
And he's got his... You know, when the goalie lets in muffin goals, or the quarterback has a 5 interception game, or the batter strikes out 4 times, especially with the runners in scoring position, that was this kind of episode. I wanted to I did interview Tevaughn Campbell. It didn't go the way I wanted. Joe Lozito, great interview, good guy, Saskatchewan fan in New York, hero. You can listen back to his interview either on X, Facebook, YouTube, at Ballsy Uncut, or in podcast form. We'll have it posted later. But my mic reverts to the camera mic. Somehow it clicked off, and it does this from time to time. So it sounds like I'm shouting when I'm not, because I think, well, I'm talking through my microphone right in front of my face here, but it's through my camera on the top of the screen. So I apologize for that. It was a shitty episode, maybe the worst I've ever had, but you're going to have those days. But I have a great list of guests coming up here this week. Caleb Joseph's going to join me to talk about the Vladdy Guerrero situation in Toronto. They should trade him now so they can get stuff. Trade him now, get the most you can. You'll wait till the deadline and get very little, or you wait till the offseason when you lose him and get a comp pick. Get what you can now. Jays are cheap, fiscally responsible. I call him a joke. Couldn't build around the guy. You're probably going to lose Bichette now too, as they don't get the long-term deal with Vladdy Guerrero Jr. So Rogers Sportsnet analyst and former Major League catcher and a friend of this show. He's on regularly during baseball season. Pitchers and catchers are in. It's taken cuts with Caleb Joseph. He'll join us. Like I said, we're going to hear from Nate Boschman, President's Trophy winner for Defensive Player of the Year in U Sports football at the Calgary Dinos. He is going to be at the Combine, one of the top DB athletes going into the Combine, highly touted, obviously, with the resume. So we'll see where he ends up getting drafted, how he does in the Combine. But I am an advocate of promoting the stars of tomorrow today. So on the next installment, we'll have him. We're also going to hear from Kyle McIntyre, commissioner of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, for the first time in this is the 38th and final year for the Notre Dame Hounds, for the Hounds in Notre Dame. They're moving to Warman. We'll talk to Kyle McIntyre, the commissioner, what goes behind the scenes into that. Why is it being done? And should there be any concern about maybe the health of the league when you see something like that? So the commissioner will join us to the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, friend of the show, and a big-time Rider fan too. So it kind of ties into the football angle we always talk about. And we'll also hear from John Ryan this week, our Kicking It with John Ryan segment. I saw a Seattle radio station. They have them on every couple of weeks, and they're using that hashtag. They're trying to, obviously, imitation is the best form of flattery, they say, but it's Kicking It with John Ryan. It originally started on the radio where I used to work. I came up with the segment. John is with me exclusively here now, and we're sending that segment out to sponsors to sponsor, so to companies to sponsor. And John will talk sports and life and all that type of stuff, winning championships as a player and as an owner now in baseball. And of course, got a famous comedian, actress wife, Sarah Colonna. They do the Lisp, what do they call it? The Book Lisp Club, something it's called, the regular podcast. He's a busy guy, and he fits us into his schedule. So we'll hear from him this week as well. And trying to nail down Jake Serezna, too, from the Edmonton Elks. They were the busiest team in the offseason. This is the place to come for all your sports talk, especially when we get it fucking running right. I apologize for today's performance. We will talk to you next time. And thanks to all my great sponsors for getting on board, even though I blew it today.